Thank you. Secretary Becerra, I am very interested in the substance use prevention and treatment, prevention aspect of this. I know the DEA has a initiative going called One Pill Can Kill. What kind of things are you doing, and how does this budget reflect a larger impact on the prevention side of this enormous issue?
Yeah, and Senator Capito, thank you for your dedication to this particular issue as well. We are doing things that have been proven effective, where evidence shows us that they help save lives. So, for example, until a year and a half ago, we would not support a program if it was providing fentanyl strips to drug users, because many thought that that was a way of increasing drug use. It's our way of trying to prevent someone from using a drug that they're not aware is laced with fentanyl. And so we're going to try to do the things that have proven themselves by the evidence to be effective, so we can provide, during that scope of prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and post-treatment services, a continuity of the services that they need so they can get off of drugs and get back to their life.
Yeah, I think some of the harm reduction, at least in my state, has been subject to some controversy if they're not well managed. So you have to be very, very careful with those programs. Let me talk about the unaccompanied children that the UACs that HHS is in charge of. I was really stunned, and maybe you were too, to read the article by the New York Times that talked about the youth and number of unaccompanied children who were placed by HHS with sponsors, who were supposed to be vetted, who are then found packing cereal boxes and roofing and other kinds, slaughterhouses. I was surprised to read that they go to school in some cases and then work all night. I mean, very barbaric kinds of situation that were reflected in this article. What is your vetting process? Are you trying to fast track it too fast? Why has this, are the sponsors, I noted in here, one of them was the relative that the person was supposed to be that the child was supposed to come and live with. What are you doing to ensure that you're placing every child in an appropriate placement?
Thank you for the question, and let me try to encapsulate what this program is for the unaccompanied migrant kids. We receive these children from the Department of Homeland Security, which is not supposed to hold them because they only have detention facilities for adults. We then take these children and offer them the care that you would expect to offer any child. Children are children, and so we offer them care while we try to place them in a more appropriate setting, because no one believes that a large government-funded congregate care setting is the best for a child. And so we make every effort to find a sponsor who would care for that child and do it well. And so we go through that vetting process, background checks and the rest. In more than 90%, about 90% of the cases, we are placing a child with a family member, whether it's the parent, aunt, uncle, sometimes an older sibling. But in about 90% of the cases, we are placing them with a family member. And there are fewer cases, far fewer cases, where it's not a family member. Sometimes it's a known relative, known friend, acquaintance, someone that the parents say, please, that's the person we would like you to place them with. But rarely do you see a case of a placement that hasn't gone through a vetting where a...
Well, what kind of follow-up do you do? Because obviously, this is reflected in this article, you're falling short in more than a few areas.
Actually, I don't think the article speaks to our process of vetting. It speaks to the process that kids are going to work.
Well, I don't think it doesn't sound to me like they were doing it voluntarily. It sounds like they're in a home, they're in a sponsor. Like I said, one of them's a relative, and they're encouraged, and you have to go work. And so obviously it's not the right sponsor if you're going to tell a 13-year-old you got to go pack cereal at night.
Right. And those kids that apparently are reported on never called us and said, we're being exploited, we're being taken advantage of, this was not what we were expecting. And so what we do is, again, we try to place them with someone we believe will be a responsible sponsor of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to do better follow-up here on, certainly on the ones that are suspect, and certainly around the industries and others that are exploiting any child. I mean, I think we agree that's
I don't think anyone disagrees with that,
right.
That we should do the best we can with any child.
Right. Let me talk about Alzheimer's and the Lequembi decision that was made by CMS to not move forward with the approval, that only very limited, and I understand from my Alzheimer's advocates, really cuts out rural America as well, because we can't access the trials and the clinical trials like you can in more compacted and more urban areas. We have trouble with healthcare delivery systems. I mean, I can speak from personal experience, which I probably should quit doing, but with my parents, we couldn't even find a gerontologist hardly in our area that could help me understand them. And so anyway, it's other agencies have taken a different approach than CMS. The VA announced last week that it would cover this for our veterans. We are desperate for something to help. This has been gone through clinical trials. It has positive science behind it. Why is that decision being made?
Well, a couple of things. First, the VA has made some moves to include it, but it also has restrictions and exclusions. It's not just a straight out approval. The second part is the clinical trials have not been done in this particular case. This was an accelerated approval, which is still requiring, FDA is still requiring that the manufacturer of the drug provide clinical evidence that it works. They went ahead and gave conditional approval, but they're still waiting to get the evidence from clinical trials. And that's where CMS is saying, that's the kind of information we need, the clinical trials showing success, so that we can move under the standards that guide CMS, which are different from the standards that guide FDA in making determinations for a particular drug.
It's interesting that you would phrase it that way, because my understanding is that there have been clinical trials and that there is science-based evidence that this does move the needle. Doesn't cure anything. I don't want anybody listening thinking it could do that. But this is something that we all obviously have our eye on. You've, I'm sure, received many, many letters, one
Yes.
from me, in this area. So I thank you. My time is way over. Sorry.
Thank you.